Welcome to The Music Reel. It's an independent podcast that shares stories from every industry across the planet that music touches. We uncover how music connects all of us, and we shed light on those who need our support now more than ever. Welcome to The Music Reel. I'm your host, Nicola Burton. Today, my guest is Australian music business aficionado, Tal Chalak, who's just rolled his eyes at my introduction. Because Tal, how are you?
I'm well, thank you, Nikki. I'm well, thank you.
The reason why I've introduced you like that, Tal, is because you've been in the promoter venue live show business for close to 4 decades. And there's not many people in this country that would understand how to create a successful live show like you. So, the people that have worked with you for the last 4 decades understand that you're the man, you're the go-to man, right? You're the man that's got his finger on the pulse. You know what people need. So, you can roll your eyes now.
No, I think that I think for me, the key to it really is just being able to bring together the right artists in the right venue at the right time, and the rest will take care of itself. Yeah. It's always that simple. And, in the middle of the pandemic, we've managed to, do that kind of thing again. And it's just about surrendering the stages to the right artists that can draw the crowd and hold the crowd. And in doing that, what you're doing is you're giving the artist the opportunity to perform. And while they're performing to an audience that's enjoying and coming together for leisure and for social activity and to enjoy the artist, and you create a kind of like a really nice vibe, and it's not really that hard.
Well said.
It's really simple. It's really simple. It surprises me that it's not done on like a lot more than that.
Well, we're going to explore that further with you, Tal, because it is so second nature to you. But people who are watching this might actually learn a few tips from our little chat today. Now,
cool.
It's November. We had lockdown in March. You and I have chatted a few times since then. Mm-hmm. But here we are. So I'm in Queensland. We've still got restrictions. We've still got 4-to-1 restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
Still $6,000 fine for each person who dances. But you can still dance at a wedding. You can dance at
dancing fines. Have you really got dancing fines?
We've got dancing fines. So 90% of the venues are still.
It's time for dirty dancing. It's time to just simply break the rules and just start.
It would be funny if it wasn't killing so many businesses.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at in Queensland, and because our borders are closed, we can't get touring artists up from Victoria, South Australia, Western Australia, etc. Tell me about the restrictions you guys have right now in New South Wales.
At the moment, I think we can operate. It depends on floor space. It depends on the amount of tables you can put in a venue. It depends on your separation. But I think we can operate at about 50% capacity, which for a venue, because most venues are really set at a 70% break even. I think that's a nice rule of thumb, is a 70% break even. I think, if you're a promoter going into a venue to put on an event, ideally, if you can get your costs down to a 60% break even, that's pretty good. So having 50% as a break even is an unviable situation. It's a loss situation. However, if you're losing at 50%, it's better to lose at 50% than to lose at 30% or to lose at closed doors. So what we're doing is by operating, even though we're running losses, we're mitigating the overall accumulated losses. So instead of losing, say, $10,000 a week, we're losing $6,500 a week. So we're losing less, but we're still losing. But we're in the game because we're putting on gigs and we're bringing people together and we're making some noise.
Well, see, it's really good that you've actually explained it that way, Tal, to help people who don't have venues to understand what's at stake for them. So a lot of venues are still being paid. They're still paying their staff and surviving through JobKeeper. So you guys have that.
JobKeeper is critical.
JobKeeper is critical. Now, the challenge we've got from October, it started to reduce.
Yeah.
Now, when Josh Frydenberg was contacted about it, he said, well, we can't save every business. And you've got the live entertainment industry forum people saying that we're going to have 79,000 jobs lost if we don't do something with JobKeeper. Then you've got the Australian Live Music Business Council saying 70% of our music industry businesses are going to be gone by January if we don't do something. But as you and I have just described, in our states, we can't actually get back to business.
No, we can't operate profitably.
That's right. So what do we do? What do you think we need to do for venues and music businesses?
We need to reinvent. I think where you can, you need to reinvent. The situation is, though, that due to the location, the configuration, the capacity of venues, the shape of the venue, you may not be able to reinvent. You may have a 200-head venue that you can only put 30 seats in, and you might only be able to sit 60 people in a 200-head venue. That's nearly 25%. If you can get it up to 100, you're still below your break even, but at least you've got some. You're making some music, and you're making a bit of money, and you're trying to mitigate your cost. You're trying to decrease the amount that you're losing. And I don't know. I'm not in that position. And I think you just need to reinvent and relook at. You've got to need to rethink. I think where maybe you're normally used to doing one show and you turn over 200 heads and you get yourself a full house. Instead, you might have to do 2 shows or 3 shows if you can. You may have to, for example, include in your ticket price 1 or 2 drinks that are sold in order to ensure that your average drink spend is a bit higher than normal in order to help decrease your losses. It's those things there. You've got to take a look at what you can do under the conditions that you have in order to be able to try to be able to milk a bit more out of it.
It's incredible hearing you talk, Tal, because we talk about, we need live music to get back, but at the cost, who's paying for it? The venues are actually paying for it. And when you talk about you're surviving in the losses. So you have to have a loss in order to support live music. I mean, that's incredible. Let's just stop and just appreciate that right now. Anyone who's in the music business, venues are going through incredible losses in order to keep this business alive. I think that's something that we need to call out and go, oh my God, that's incredible.
Yeah, look, venues are the foundation infrastructure. Venues are the places that the artists have their stages in, that the agents make their bookings in, that the promoters put their shows in, that the managers have their artists play at, that the punters come and they vote with their feet and they vote with their wallet and they buy a ticket and they buy a drink. It all happens in venues. Now, what I think a lot of people are failing to understand is venues, because of the sheer fact that they're buildings, they're physical edifices that are buildings. There's rent, there's mortgages, there's ongoing costs on a level that you don't have if you're a musician. A musician can be suffering too by not having work or not having as much work, but the musician doesn't have to pay $20,000 a week or $50,000 a week or $3,000 a week in rent just to hold that position. And the issue with the live music venues is if they collapse, they may never come back again. And those positions can be lost. And there are some, at the moment, we're seeing small venues in Sydney, starting to collapse, which is, a worry for us. But there's also like larger scale venues that if they don't open their doors, the impact, not just in the business itself, not just on the local economy for what the business creates for the local economy, but also culturally, what it does and what it also does, in the ability to be able to, like really important venues, it can be a hole that can never be filled again. And that's the situation we're in at the moment. That's just how it is.
Okay, so let's just cards on the table. What do venues in New South Wales need in order to survive? So
you just need to think outside the square. You need to.
The state government, what does the state government need to do to help you?
The government should do what the state government in Victoria did, and also the grants that were allowed in Queensland, which I understand haven't been that good, but at least there's been some grant structure. What the New South Wales state government ought to do is they ought to recognise that there's a subset of live music venues that are the dedicated live music venues that are the backbone of the infrastructure. They're not run by people that have got bottle shops and poker machines. There's no poker machines, no bottle shops, no bars open during the day, no bistros, right? These are dedicated live music venues and they are run by music industry people that get music and understand, how entertainment works. And they need to come in with a rescue package for those venues, because those venues, they can't Uber a takeaway drink. They can't, pump money out of their pokies. They can't, have a bistro going. They haven't got any of that. These venues only exist when there's an artist on the stage that people have bought a ticket to come and see, and the government needs to recognise that that is the music industry. And the music industry needs to be, so it's really important, because it's not just about what we do economically, which is significant. I think in New South Wales, it's 3.6 billion, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
And
which is enormous.
Yeah. And the government needs to kind of pull the trigger and throw some money over to the live music venues. Are they doing it? No, they're not doing it. Are we trying to make them do it? Yeah, we've got a little association going. We're hustling, because that's essentially what we do. We hustle gigs. We hustle shows. So we're hustling the government. Yeah.
So tell us about what you guys are actually doing right now.
We're following the Victorian model. The Victorian model was brilliant. Victorian government turned around and they just did the thing where they just gave venues based on capacity $80,000 to $100,000 a venue to help get them through the COVID situation. And this was before Melbourne had the second outbreak. This was all done beforehand. So, because I was involved with a client there, and I watched that whole process unfold. In Sydney, we started something similar with a whole lot of venues. There's like 70 venues involved. There's, a smaller subset of core venues involved. We followed the Melbourne process, which was initially to lodge a e-petition with the government on the government website. So we did that. And that e-petition got 20,000 signatures in 30 hours. And it was the first e-petition ever to qualify to be tabled and debated in Parliament. That was a couple of months ago. And because we're in a precarious situation and we know venues about to close, we know that we're about to lose some venues, we tried to work with government bodies, and we tried to create our own little music body, but we're not used to that. We're not used to kind of going, hey, look, we need help, give us some money, because generally what happens is we hustle and we make gigs happen and we do it. Because we were uncertain, we decided instead to follow an example that we saw Animals Australia do. What they did was they set up a platform where they asked the public basically to write to their local MPs, and the platform's a really simple platform where you put your name, your email address, your postcode. It links you direct to your MP. There's a pre-written email that you can add to if you like, and you hit send. It takes under 15 seconds to do. And so we went to a lot of bother to set up that kind of platform. So we went from the petition, which was a prescribed process through government to petition the government to help the live music industry, to asking the voters, the punters, the people that come to the venues, to write to their MPs. And, we launched that, I think, only 4 days ago. We launched it on we launched it on Friday, and we've had 5,500 emails so far sent to the MPs. And we're expecting now that in the coming week, we're hoping that we can get another 5,500. We can hit 10,000. And maybe because of the voters actually saying, look, don't let these venues go down, that the government may turn around and go, okay, we're going to have a bit of a industry stimulus package for you. Because we don't need much. We're not actually even really asking for anything, because by the time we're back in full swing, we're going to pay back everything and more.
Exactly.
But you're saying, hey, give us a spot because we're stuck at the moment. Help us get through this spot. And in the back end, you're going to get your pound of flesh like you always do. You're the government.
And the thing is, like, anyone who's watching this thinking, oh, look, who cares about that industry? There's far more important industries. The number that Tal just gave you, that in New South Wales alone, that has contributed to the economy, we are the canary in the coal mine. You take that out of the economy, you're going to lose 5, 10, 15 times that amount from the economy in secondary and tertiary losses.
It's not even that, Nikki. It's like music connects us all. It brings us all together. It's part of what's good for us socially, culturally, mental health wise, the economic drive. You know, all those things are as important. You just can't take it out of the equation. Like, you can't take music out of any equation because, you know, it's just part of our lives. So, you know,
so important to support.
they've got to pull the trigger and they've got to give us some money, basically. But, you know, they may not do it. So in between that, you know, we just have to think of ways we can make things work.
So
and
it
they're
sounds
like,
the future of live music in New South Wales is actually in good hands with the program that you guys are currently working on at the moment. And really the gap here is to get some support for the live venues from the state government so that in that year that it takes for us to recover, they can actually survive and be out the other side. So perhaps can I include the link to your current campaign?
Yes, please, for New South Welsh people, because it's basically a New South Wales government campaign. It's sosnsw.org, and that's Save Our Stages. And basically that's the call out to help the venues, and it's to help all the venues around New South Wales. I mean, the venues, I'll be candid with you, Nikki, the venues I'm associated with are very well-established venues that, you know, like we're not worried about places like the Factory in the Enmore. They're just rock solid, you know. But it's really when we see the small venues start to collapse, we worry, because where do the large artists come from? Where do I reach out and how do I find these bands if they haven't already been playing in these small venues? You know, and so we need to make sure that especially the small venues are being really protected, and also the established venues that have had to trade under adverse conditions. You know, if major one of those falls, it has a big impact.
So it's really important to really preserve the entire ecosystem, I think.
Absolutely. And the most important thing is kind of like it's the actual venues, really.
Yeah.
I mean, like the musicians are important, the production companies are important, the agents are important, but at the end of the day, we all earn our bread and butter at the venues. And the venues, if the venues go, then, you know, the income stream goes.
Exactly. There's no place to plumb. And that's what we found in the lockdowns. Without the venues, people could do live streaming, but it just wasn't the same as going out to a live venue. So it's a critical component in the actual music business roadmap. So Tal Chalak, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, Nikki.
What you're doing. It's so important for people to understand what the mechanism is for a venue in order to be able to put on these live shows. So everyone, I'll put the link in this post. Make sure you support it if you're in New South Wales.
Yeah, and please. Thank you.
Thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you, Nikki. Awesome. Thank you.